Hello again, everybody. Harry Doyle here, welcoming all you friends of the feather.
Are you scared yet? Because you should be, because we got the best SORARE MLB fantasy plays coming for you right now.
Way back, way back.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Elite Fantasy Sports. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at Game Week 4 on SORARE MLB. We are going to give you the 5 best stacks for the upcoming week. We're also going to give you some elite pitching plays, maybe some relief pitching strategies, my favorite marketplace buys, and a big fade. But before we get started, if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. Do me a favor, like the video, hit the subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're ready to go every time we drop a video. And drop a comment. How have you been cooking in the SORARE MLB streets so far this season? Well, it's officially spring baseball because we have been dodging weather left and right to start the season. Some ugly environments. We've seen a little bit of snow. We've got our first rain out. Our first doubleheader actually starts today with the Sox and the Cardinals making up for yesterday's rain out. But we're not talking about what just happened. We're talking about what's about to happen.
I take him into the future.
So let's get started with our top 5 stacks. Now you're going to notice 4 of these stacks are in series against each other because they are the only 4 teams that are playing 4 different games this game week. And again, if you're new to SORARE MLB, one of the differences between the baseball side and the NBA side, instead of getting your highest scoring performance and that's it for the entirety of the game week, this is a cumulative scoring system, right? So you get all of the points on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So if your team is playing 4 games, you immediately have an advantage. Unless, of course, it was last game week where it was really cold and nobody was scoring any runs. Our number 1 stack for this upcoming game week is a home pick. It is the Boston Red Sox, who are squaring up against the Toronto Blue Jays for a 4-game series in Fenway Park. And if you don't believe that the Red Sox or the opposing team are better hitters when they come to Fenway, well, you can see just from the 13-9 performance in the 1 game we've had so far against the Cardinals that we should see some fireworks. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw my second best stack in here, and we'll talk about these teams together because it's going to be the Red Sox and it's going to be the Blue Jays. Our first matchup, it's Garrett Crotchet against Jose Barrios. Our second matchup, we've got Tanner Houck against Eaton Lucas. Third matchup, we've got the Gaussman and Walker Buehler. And then our last one is Priester, who is a man I've never heard of, taking on Chris Bassitt. Now, those are all really solid pitchers, especially on the front end of the series. However, in Fenway, with both of these offenses, both teams can be beat. The top half of the Boston Red Sox lineup is just fireworks. And yes, Devers struck out 3,500 times to start the season. Trevor Story is a real big boomer bust guy. Passes has been off to a weird start. However, again, when you see that 13-run performance, you see Bregman, who might be the best play out of all of them. Sure, he doesn't have the steal upside as the leadoff hitter in Duran, and he doesn't have the power of a Devers or a Casas, but Bregman, when he is in Fenway, just absolutely rakes. He's off to a pretty solid start this season. We saw what he did in that first game at home in Fenway against the Cardinals, but even when he was an Astro, he absolutely smoked the ball in Fenway. So you already know I'm a homer. You already know I'm going to be racking up those stacks for my main lineups, and it's probably going to be a full stack. We're going to have Devers out there. We're going to have Bregman. We're going to have Story and Duran. Casas might be the one that gets left off of that main stack, but I really like that as an option for this game week. But we should also talk about Toronto on the other side because they got big Vladdy dad, Vladimir Guerrero, George Springer, Bo Bichette, Santander, even Alejandro Kirk. All of those guys could absolutely cook for Toronto. And honestly, their matchups are a little bit better because outside of Crotchet, like, I'm not really nervous. Also, I need to learn if it's Crotchet or Crochet, but it just feels hot to say Crotchet. You know what I mean?
So I'm like foaming at the mouth. So I'm like, shit, that's no
hey,
question.
We're going to come the way they're going to use you.
But outside of him, I'm not really concerned about Houck. Houck can limit damage for sure, but it's not like he's going up against an ace. We already saw Walker Buehler get got already this season. And then, of course, Priester is somebody that I have not heard of. So I feel comfortable attacking Toronto on this side of things. Now, the one drawback to this series is played in Boston, which, again, great offensive environment from a park standpoint. However, it is April in Boston. It's early April. It's going to be cold. It's going to be cold for all 4 games. However, they should get all 4 games in. We know there's a little bit of a chance of rain on Monday, but I think they'll play through it. Then Tuesday through Thursday is looking clear, kid. So fire up your Red Sox, fire up your Blue Jays, wheels up. Our second 4-game stint that we're going to dive into, which is going to make up for stack 3 and stack 4. It is a team coming off of only 2 games this past game week for the weekend in the Minnesota Twins as they take on the Kansas City Royals in Kansas City. There is a chance of rain on Thursday, the last game of that game week. However, the first 3 games, the hitting environment is warm. It looks good. So So I really do like both of these matchups. And here are the pitchers for this series. We've got Lorenzen versus Woods Richardson. We've got the lefty Cole Reagans against Pablo Lopez, which is probably the best pitching matchup we're going to get. Then you have Seth Lugo against Joe Ryan. And then last but not least, Michael Wacha against Bailey Ober. So again, on paper, this series, if all things were equal and everybody was playing just the same amount of games this game week, I'm not sure they'd have a massive advantage over the other. However, but because they're getting the extra game this game week, we do have to attack these teams, and the hitting environment may be one of the best this entire weekend outside of, the small field that we'll talk about here in a second. I think that's where we attack. Now, let's start with Minnesota. And the one nice thing about Minnesota's slow start this season is everything is pretty affordable. Now, again, talking mostly on the hitting side, I'm not really as interested in the pitching side. You've got guys like Harrison Bader is under $4. Willie Castro's off to a pretty hot start for Minnesota, is probably your most expensive piece at $6.50. You've got Byron Buxton, who's sub $6. You got Carlos Correa, sub $7. Matt Wallner, sub $6.50. And then Ryan Jeffers is only over $2. Now, I'm not saying go stack them up completely, but I do think your Wallners, your Larnachs, your Castros, your Buxtons, all incredible plays. Now, on the Royals side of things, of course, Bobby Witt Jr., go play him if you have him already. But I do think you can even get to guys like Salvador Perez, Kyle Isbell. Melendez is more of a pitching matchup guy, like real platoon issues there, but he also has upside. Michael Massey, Hunter Renfroe. You got all of the guys on the Royals. I think you can fire them up. So that is 4 of our 5 stacks. All 4 teams get to play 1 extra game. Now, I know we've talked about this in other videos. Just because they're playing extra games doesn't mean every single person in that lineup is going to play all 4 games. People get rest days. However, it does give us the highest upside. We're going to get 3 or 4 more at-bats just because of that. So just to recap the top 4 before we get into another range, and I might actually give you 6 stacks instead of 5, but we've got the Red Sox, who are going to be number 1. Honestly, the Blue Jays probably should be the number 1 stack, but I'm not going to do that because I'm wicked pumped to play my Sox. Blue Jays are stack number 2 for me. Then I think I would go Twins because I already own them as 3, and then Royals number 4. But to me, those are the clear top 4 stacks. Now let's get into 5 and 6. Now for these stacks, we have to talk about massive upside here because they have to make up a whole extra game. And do you know where we go to do that? Denver, Colorado. Tap the Rockies. Now, you might be saying, hey, Mike, I was watching some of those Rockies athletics games over the weekend, and there were chances of snow the entire time. I saw Taylor on Twitter share that he spent like $150 on a little bit of food because he was at a game. Well, now the Brew Crew, a much better offense than the Athletics, head into Colorado. And not only is that an improvement of offense, we're also getting 60-degree weather in Denver. So we have the park environment, we have the weather environment, and then the pitching is like, yeah. Freeland against Peralta. We've got Cortez, who we saw the Yankees and the Torpedo Bats knock 4 home runs out in the first inning of his first matchup of the season against Senzatella, who's been solid this season. And then in the last matchup, we got Feltner versus Tyler Alexander. So again, not total gas cans, but all very beatable pitchers with decent offenses in an awesome environment. So we're firing up the Rockies. We saw a little bit of it last night in that game against the Athletics. Your McMahons, your Doyles, and your Tovars are probably your clear top 3 there. You can also filter in some of the other guys if you would like to, but those are the 3 that I will be targeting. And then on the Milwaukee side, honestly, fire them all up. Obviously, Yelich, Jackson, Contreras, Mitchell, who we've talked about in the early season buys that we like, Terang. You can really get to almost any single Brewer because, again, you're just trying to make up the lack of the extra game that the Red Sox, Blue Jays, Royals, and Twins are going to get. So let's bombs. Just send the bombs out. And outside of Cheerio and Yelich, it's not too expensive of a buy on the Milwaukee side of things as we take a look in the marketplace. And the Rockies, the same thing. Brent Doyle, sub $7. Tovar is the most expensive, I think, sub $11. Chris Bryant, Jacob Stallings, Kyle Farmer, all those guys free and are going to get some at-bats in great environments. So again, Rockies and Brewers. So those are my top 6 heading into this game week here. Now let's get to the mound. My number 1 pitcher heading into this game week is going to be Michael King of the Dads, the San Diego Padres, who are taking on the Athletics this upcoming game week. He's been off to a great start. 1-0 through his 2 appearances. His ERA a little bit higher than normal at 3.5. However, the K upside is there, where he's got 14 Ks already this season. He's got a great matchup against the Athletics and a favorable ballpark. Michael King, to me, by far the ace that I'm going to be targeting the most this upcoming game week. Now, for these top 3 pitchers, I'm really not going too far off the table. Like I said, Michael King, and you're probably like, yeah, of course he's a good play. You're probably going to feel the same way for the second one. It's going to be Blake Snell from the Dodgers, who's taking on the Nationals, which again, Nationals offense has gotten there a couple of times this season. However, Blake Snell should be able to overpower that offense. Only concern with Blake Snell, he's like a more advanced Robbie Ray, where sometimes he ends up throwing a ton of pitches, gets himself into some jams. However, his K upside is just so high. And again, the matchup against the Nationals, super beatable. His K rate's actually dipped quite a bit. He's only got 4 Ks so far, but he's 1-0. Again, the Nationals should fix that. And honestly, Snell not super expensive on the marketplace for an ace caliber starting pitcher at just over $13 in the limited streets. That might go up once people see the matchup coming up, but I do like targeting Blake Snell. All right, the next matchup, we've got the Astros taking on the Mariners this upcoming game week, and Framber Valdez is in a solid spot. Seattle definitely has some boom bust in it, but again, for only $10 on the marketplace, I kind of like Valdez's upside here. Through 12 innings pitched this season, he's racked up 13 Ks already. Seattle can absolutely strike out a lot. I think there's a ton of upside in this matchup. Valdez might be my SP2, if you will, behind Michael King. All right, here we go. Those three were super obvious, right? That's probably not helpful. You're like, oh, congrats, Mike. Thanks for telling me to play Michael King, Blake Snell, and Valdez, dude. All right, now let's go a little deeper here. So this next one is technically a relief pitcher. However, he's got starting capabilities or eligibility, if you will, because of our friends over at SORARE MLB. That's the New York Met, Clay Holmes. Now, Clay Holmes definitely has some, as we said, boom bust in him. We have seen him get beaten quite a bit. However, he's only $6.50 on the SORARE marketplace. Clay Holmes to start the season is 0-1, but if we dig in a little bit deeper, through 9 1/3 innings pitched, so again, he hasn't gone too deep in his starts. His ERA is under 3, and he's got 10 Ks in less than 10 innings. We like a K in inning rate. He's got a matchup against Miami, Miami a little bit feistier on the base path. They're running around. Shut up, Borland, Xavier Edwards. But anyways, I do like Clay Holmes here. I think you get a huge advantage by having a relief pitcher that is starting pitching eligibility. Honestly, I wouldn't even hate saving the Clay Holmes and firing it up in a daily contest, because I do think you get a massive advantage by having your relief pitcher be a starter pitcher in a 1-day contest versus a 3 or 4 day contest. So anyways, Clay Holmes, relatively cheap on the marketplace. I don't know if people view him as a starting pitcher yet, but again, matchup against Miami, relatively cheap, relief pitching eligibility, Clay Holmes to the moon. All right, this one a little bit more expensive here, and it's Hunter Green of the Cincinnati Reds. He's $20 currently on the marketplace in the limited streets. I know he's a little bit more expensive. The young gun, though, has been off to a pretty solid start. He's got 16 Ks through 12 innings. He gets to go to San Francisco, get out of the hitter-friendly ballparks into the pitcher-friendly ballparks, takes on a San Francisco team that's very beatable. His ERA, even though he's 0-1, his ERA is 2.25 right now. Again, he's going to be mowing down these Giants. I really like Hunter Green. Not saying you should go out and buy them, because it's a little bit pricier when we're looking at marketplace spends, trying to stay a little bit cheaper. So to recap, our favorite 5 starting pitchers heading into game week 4, we got Michael King of the Dads, the San Diego Padres. We got Blake Snell against the Natty Bows. We got Framber Valdez against Seattle Mariners. Clay Holmes from the Mets against the Mariners. And then last but not least, Hunter Green against the Giants. All right, the relief pitching segment is actually going to be more of a question for the chat. So I would love people to weigh in the comments, in our Discord, which, by the way, if you haven't joined that, slide into the Discord. You can find the link in the show notes. But I'm just curious what other people are doing here. So for me personally, my relief pitching strategy to start the season has been one of 2 things. I've been doing a lot of stacking, if you will, from the pitching side of things. So if I'm rolling out, say, a Seattle Mariners pitcher, if you're going with a Luis Castillo this week, you're like, you know what, I'll throw Munoz in there as well. If I'm running out a Garrett Crotchet, I'll go old friend Crochet, maybe I'll throw Aroldis Chapman in there. So pairing up my starter and my reliever to hopefully double up those points, because if that reliever's getting a save, that means that pitcher most likely getting a W as well. Feels like we're doubling the points. It's almost like pairing up a quarterback with a wide receiver. I know the correlation's not exactly the same, but there's some correlation there. The other thing that I've thought about doing is putting relief pitchers like we talked about with Clay Holmes. Another example of this is Bowden Francis of the Toronto Blue Jays, who I believe plays tonight as I'm recording this against the New York Mets. But the other strategy is using some of those relief pitchers that start to get some starter numbers from a relief pitcher position. Now, the downside of that, like say the Red Sox sweep the Blue Jays in this 4-game series, probably not going to happen. Now, Chapman's probably not going to pitch all 4 of those games, but maybe he gets a save on Monday, Tuesday, they rest him on Wednesday, gets a save on Thursday. Now you've racked up 3 saves from your reliever. So I guess what I've been struggling with is, what do you think has the most upside when looking at relief pitchers? Are you trying to get starters that have relief pitcher eligibility? Are you focusing on stacking, or are you just focusing on like who's got the best match matchup. Like if you see the Yankees are playing who is the worst team in baseball right now, the Chicago White Sox, so you're just like, we got to fire up the Yankees closer because we could get 3 or 4 saves out of this run. And the last part about this relieving question that I've been throwing out there, is there any value in these middle relievers? Like, are you ever targeting a middle reliever outside of the fact that our boy John and SORARE MLB might throw out a daily contest that says, hey, you only get points from the pitcher thrown in the 6th inning? Like, is there any situation where you're focusing on those middle relievers? Or for you, is it guaranteed closers and then starting pitchers with relief pitching eligibility? Forgive me for asking questions in the content instead of giving you the answers. But again, I'm still relatively new to the baseball streets, although from my daily wins, you might not know that. You might think I'm a wily vet who carries a baseball bat with him at all times. This is a little Jalen Rose call out there. But yeah, please let me know what you think about the relief pitching situation, because I would love all of the feedback. I would love to know your strategies a little bit better, just so I can understand the game and then honestly dominate you. Next up, we got to get into some bargain buys. Now, a lot of the plays that we're going to be talking about are from some of the stacks or hitting situations that we already covered. We're going to try to stay on the cheaper side of things, sub $10. And to get us started, we're going back to that Red Sox Blue Jays side of things. And we're going to target a newly acquired Toronto Blue Jay who's also named after a bank, and that's Anthony Santander. Anthony Santander left the Orioles over on the Blue Jays and has a history of just smashing the Red Sox. He's currently just at $10 in the limited marketplace right now. We've got a 4-game series against Boston. And in 73 games against the Boston Red Sox, Anthony Santander is hitting .262, 16 bombs, 53 RBIs, and 43 runs scored. And I know he's off to a little bit of a slow start, only 7 hits in his first 30-plus at-bats. However, Fenway Park cures all. We're going to target another slow starter, another guy in a 4-game series, and that's the Minnesota Twins' Byron Buxton. Shout out Aaron Borland. You can get Buxton for like $5 right now in the limited marketplace. We know they have 4 games against the Kansas City Royals. He's poised for a breakout. I know he's off to a slow start, but we believe in the Bucks. And then last but not least, and honestly, this is kind of a cheap, sneaky stack that if all things were equal and everybody was playing just 3 games this game week, I wouldn't hate taking a shot on the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox take on the Guardians this weekend. They're going against Logan Allen, Ben Lively, and Gavin Williams, all beatable pitchers. And right now, for $8 on the limited marketplace, old Lubob, Luis Robert, he's off to a brutal start, but maybe this is the beginning of a Lubabasance. He's yet to hit a bomb. However, again, like these matchups, maybe it's more of a daily play than a full bi-weekly play. I just think at some point Lubob starts to break out. I'm a Luis Robert buyer. And before we end with our last little segment, I just want to appreciate you guys for tuning in and checking out the content. As I said at the top of the video, if it's your first time tuning in, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop that sweet content. And if you are new, just so you know, we also do a ton of basketball content. So if you're in the NBA streets, we have a live before lock on Monday and Fridays. And if you're here just for baseball, we'll drop videos every Sunday and every Thursday, sometimes recorded like this one, sometimes live. But I wanted to end with the biggest fade of the week. Fade. And that's going to be a team I targeted a ton the first couple of game weeks here, because they play in an awesome hitting environment in the Great American Small Park. They got a lot of big bombs. You got Eli Belly de la Cruz. It's the Cincinnati Reds. I'm not saying the Reds still can't get there, but I just think for the first time this season, they're going to be tested in a way that they haven't been so far. They got tough pitching matchups, and then they are playing all the way in San Francisco, a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. They're going up against the likes of Justin Verlander, Logan Webb, and Landon Roop, and they only have 3 games, and you kind of combine all of that, and I think everyone's going to be looking at the small sample size of the start of the season, and rightfully so. The Reds have been hot. We saw them drop some big numbers the other night or last night, so I'm not going to be mad at you if you're throwing out Elly De La Cruz. Of course you're playing Elly De La Cruz. He can get there no matter where they play. TJ Friedel, sure. Carcion Strand, sure. Whatever you want to do. Mr. McClain, if he's back in action. I know he's been day-to-day. Sure, if you want to go there, go there. I've been playing the Reds a ton to start the season. I think for game week 4, we got the big fade. All right, we're going to call it there. Reminder, let me know in the chat what you're thinking on the relief pitching situation. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.